Alexa, turn on Dynamic Duo. Hello, hello, one and all. How is your evening going? Mine is going okay. I am just, it's late, of course. This is my Friday night, which I tend to actually stay up a bit later. And I usually don't clear my desk off until I'm sitting in front of it, so that's why I'm adjusting while you see me coming online. So last time I finished up a dog. I did a Mastiff. This is the guy I just finished up. He's cool. Came out pretty good. But I could have done some more blending on him, and I'm not going to. I'm tempted. I look at him. I could blend more to get the fade between the white and the gray going a little bit better. I don't like the extreme variance, but it'll do for now. I'm good. I'm good with it because it's not meant to be a main character. It's not even meant to be a. I don't know. It's not. It was just something to finish up. So. Okay, so this is the big dude I've been working on. He's got a long way to go. You can see he doesn't have much of anything going for him right now, texture-wise or shading-wise or even separation-wise. Having a little trouble in the mind on how I'm going to go with this guy. So I've been letting myself get distracted. So this guy has been kind of coming in, taking some of my brain juice. Mostly because, like I said, I don't really know what I'm going to do with him in some places. So this guy's just a Knoll dog. I do have some Knoll events coming up in my campaign that I'm running, and so this guy will probably get a play. I've only got the one. I've got a couple of smaller Knoll characters, but. I've got hobgoblins. I don't know. I probably don't even have that many Knoll characters, really. Probably what I have are hobgoblins. Knolls are a bigger character. I mean, they're still mediums, I think. This dog is obviously much larger than most. I'm going to try. I don't know what to do with him. I'm going to try some. I don't know. He's like, I'm going to call him a Unango's pet? Is that what it is? Sure. Call him Unango's pet. So, I'm just trying to. Let's do orange. Why orange, you say? Because that's the thing that came to mind. So I'm going to put down some Martian orange. Why am I doing Martian orange? I don't know. Because he's got red on him, and I'm thinking highlighting his hair. I'm just putting it in his hair area. His body's kind of got red. I was thinking, or maybe just the skin. Yeah, maybe just the skin, and then I'll drive his hair towards the darker colors. I don't know. I'm really not sure. Now this is Vallejo's Express colors. You know, I do like the Vallejo Express colors. I don't know. Most of them I like. I don't know. They seem good. I can't quite put my finger on it though. I don't know what it is I like about them. So unfortunately, I can't tell you. I can't tell you. So you're like, why do you like them? Well, because I do. So yeah, it's probably not very helpful to you. Yet, I mean, as far as getting my personal opinions. Let's see, I went to a movie today. My wife and I went to go see Ghostbusters. Yeah, we went to go see it. It was getting pretty mediocre reviews, I guess. But we liked it. I'm like I said, I don't put a high bar on movies. I don't go expecting the world. I just try to go and enjoy a movie. So it's easier for me to not worry so much about things like public opinion when it comes to movies. Um, I'm pretty I'm pretty easily. Now, don't get me wrong. I've seen bad movies and I know what a bad movie is. I mean, just downright bad. But I'm just not terribly concerned with it. You know, there there are bad movies out there, no doubt. But I just feel like movies can be enjoyable even if they're not great. That's why, there's even been movies out there that have come out. I mean, that are. I mean, if you really think about it, they're not good movies. But yet they become cult classics. There's a few of those that they get that title, cult classic, because what it means is it's a B movie or a low grade movie that just somehow got really popular. Something, somewhere, some way, somehow got this thing popular amongst the masses for some bizarre reason. And as a result, you end up with these movies that shouldn't be as popular as they are, but voila, there they are. And I don't know. I'm not saying by any means that this is going to be one of those, but I also don't think it's as bad as what some of those movies were. I was just watching a YouTube video earlier that was talking about shows um, that were bad when they came out, but somehow they've gotten some love since in time. Time has resurrected them into the love zone. The people out there are giving them some credit. But like I said, I'm up for giving any movie a chance. For one, I've got probably the most wide, one of the widest palettes of movies, of tolerance for movies of anyone out there. Does that mean I have bad taste? It just means I have. I don't think it means I have bad taste. It means I have wide variety of taste, and it also means I have a high tolerance for low grade movies. Because as long as it's entertaining, people are acting stupid in the film. Maybe the lines aren't all that great. Sometimes I chuckle at it. Maybe I'll just take that in as part of the entertainment value of a movie. But this show, it wasn't the best Ghostbusters. There were things about it that were like, felt a little forced. It felt a little repeaty. It reminded me a lot of, I think, the second Ghostbusters that came out. When they, because this is like, there's been what, two Ghostbusters? There were two Ghostbusters, right? One and two, and then there was the female one, and then there were, these two latest ones that are kind of like the new reboot continuations, whatever, where they kind of have new characters. Even though this one had pretty much all the original characters, except of course Egon, who died who died in real life, so kind of hard to get him on the show. But he was, but his family is kind of the main, the center point of the film. So as they were in the previous one. So it was good. I liked it. My wife liked it. We both kind of. She really likes the Ghostbusters movies. Just something about them, I think, right, that ring well with her. So she likes them, which is good enough for me. She likes, of course, the rom-com. She's not a big action movie person in general, but certain types she'll give them a chance. Like she likes the Godzilla and King Kong movies, and of course, hey, I'm like, yeah, nice. I will. I will go with. I'll take that opportunity to go see some monsters beating up on each other with my wife, who doesn't normally like shows like that. But for some reason, Godzilla and Kong ring true for her, so she's willing to give them a go. I don't know what's going on, but I feel like I got a hair, like a, I don't know, maybe a dog hair or something on my lip. It's itching my lip. It's driving me crazy. So that's why I keep scratching or bumping my lip. Been trying to get through all my Paramount Plus stuff because at the end of the month, our Paramount Plus is going out, and I think I caught up to my Star Trek and Halo, so that's good. Star Trek, well, okay, not all of them. I haven't watched Discovery. I think I watched like the first couple of episodes of Discovery, which is fine, except I'm not going to get through all of them. And then I watched, but I've been watching Strange New Worlds. That's the one I've been watching. Captain, is it Benjamin Pike? Something like that. It's pretty good though. I like that one. It's a pretty good Star Trek. I think I'm caught up with Picard. Because that season I think came out a while back. I don't think there's a current season, one running or anything like that. So I'm right now trying to watch Lower Decks. That's my current Star Trek one, but I'm maybe gonna make it. I don't know. I got a couple weeks left, end of the month. Lower Decks isn't too bad. What's the general consensus with those out there? Lower Decks. What do people think of Lower Decks? Has anybody seen those? Seen that show? If you have, let me know. Let me know in the comments. I know comments have nothing to do with, it has nothing to do with my painting, but that's not really why I'm painting. Paint to give you something to stare at while we're chatting, while I chat with you. I talk about all kinds of weird stuff, so you never know. You come by and join me. Get my thoughts on God. Yep, I'm a Christian. Yeah, I'm not afraid to admit it. Yeah. What about it? No, but I'm also free to, I don't have any problem with other people wanting to believe otherwise. It's up to you. I don't think it's, uh, yes, my faith would say you're probably, taking some big risks by not opening your mind to the truth, or okay, to be opening your mind to the possibility, but hey, everybody's up to their ready to. Man, what the heck is my nose, man? I think I'm being inundated with dog hair or something. I'm gonna have to actually use some. I don't know. I'm giving this guy kind of a fiery look for a knoll. I don't know if that's the right answer. He might be actually getting a little too much fieriness going. But I'm going to bring his hair to a more blacker state. That may be a black red, but it needs to be gray too. So I don't know how that's going to work, right? It's definitely popping that orange is definitely making the red on his skin pop more. I like that. All right, so as you see, I'm jumping all over the place with the various topics. But anyway, so yeah, I was talking about the different things. My variety of topics was, my topic was my variety of topics. I was talking about how I tend to talk about God a lot. Not preaching this, not telling you the stories or giving you the verses, but I tend to like to talk about things like what's heaven going to be like, what do you visualize, what truly is the afterlife going to be? You know, I've talked about this a few times in past videos, but I think it's an interesting topic. I mean, as a Christian, I think it's an interesting topic because most people just think, oh, you know, you die, you go to heaven, blah. What does that mean? What does die, go into heaven? Okay, first of all, now this is differing. This comment here I'm about to say gonna put me on notice with a lot of Christians too, I suppose. I don't believe that when you die you go to heaven or hell or anywhere. Not when you die. First of all, I believe there's a guy named Doug Batchelor, I think is his name. He's a online preacher. I think he doesn't consider himself any one denomination. He likes to go, he says his belief is the Bible. He goes to church. He likes the Seventh-day Adventists. He likes to go. Seventh-day Adventists are Christians who basically believe Sabbath is Saturday. And I tend to believe that too because I've studied and looked at and reviewed his reasoning. And it's sound. It makes perfect sense to me. God never gave, in the Bible, it never says anywhere that Sunday is the Sabbath. Never, anywhere, at any time. He also doesn't say, and one of the key points was, he says the Sabbath, when he refers to the Sabbath. And of course, in the Old Testament, the Sabbath is Saturday. He doesn't ever say a Sabbath or just take a day of rest in random. He says the Sabbath. Now, there's some gray areas, and maybe it's just me being human and trying to look for ways around some stuff. As somebody would say, what's convenient to you? No, I mean, I want to be. So, like, all right. So, as you say, I jump around, but I'll get around to everything eventually. If I'm here long enough, I'll get around to everything. Okay, so one of my key points is Sabbath is Saturday. So a lot of times I'll be doing something like, I try not to do any work on Saturdays. Nothing, and I don't mean like some of the Orthodox Jews will like do nothing. They literally will just sit, do nothing. They don't like to turn on lights. They won't turn on televisions. They won't cook. They won't do anything like that. Everything's got to be nothing. To me, that's kind of silly. To me, God says it's a day of rest, not work. And to me, rest is recovery. It's doing things that are entertaining, that relieve the stress of life, the physical and mental stress of life. So what that means is, obviously, nothing that you wouldn't do recreationally. So I give Saturday a day of recreation, which could be something that looks like work if you are if you're just not into it, but at the same time, it could also be very therapeutic and restful. Like, I'll go play tennis with friends. Like, if I had the opportunity to go play tennis on a Saturday, I'd be like, "Hey, let's do it, man. I'm up for it. Let's go hit the courts, you know." But I would never just go out to practice tennis on a Saturday. I wouldn't just go out to do that, because to me that is work. I mean, it's enjoyable. I enjoy it, but it's not. It's work. You're mentally trying to focus on not the fun of the game and not just exerting your efforts, but now you're actually trying to improve. You're trying to focus. You're trying to work on things, which you can't do during an actual game because that's not fun and that's not how you play games. You just can't. You can't focus that way. So Um, that is where I'm talking about. Um, I'm going in my head, I'm back and forth on my paint colors here. Um, so I feel that recreational exercise is fine. Recreational exercise, not just exercise for the sake of getting fit, but exercise for the sake of spending time with those you love and people you know, and just doing something enjoyable that that actually makes you feel like, I don't know, better about yourself, your mind. You're just clearing your head. That's fine. Okay, so and this is just me. Okay, so um, my interpretation of what rest is, and I don't know that the Bible goes too thoroughly into what rest is supposed to be when you're supposed to be taking a rest. So I don't dwell on it too much, but I do struggle with a couple of thoughts of what that means. Is like one of the things the Bible does say is you can't make others work for you, right? So if you had slaves or servants or whatever, but servants could be paid. It'd be people that are working for you, your personal assistant. Those are people you would not have working for you. And if you're recognizing the Sabbath, you wouldn't be like, hey, I'm taking this day off. Go do this, this, and this for me while I'm taking the day off. No, that's not how it works. You you can't have other people working. You can't be making others work either. So that would be a no-no. And some people debate as to whether or not things like going out to eat is, or going to the movies or anything like that. Is that working against the no make other people's work, right? And I've struggled with that thought in my head a few times. But here's kind of my thinking. Those people are working whether you're there or not. It's not like you made them go to work. So they're doing it. If it ain't for you, it's for someone else. Some would say, well, if nobody did it, they wouldn't be working. They'd have no job. So by patronizing the places that hire them or make them work, or have them coming in on the Sabbath, you're basically making them work because they only would be doing this because people come. But it's like, yeah, but we live in the United States, and it'll never be like that. I could see how maybe it's a big deal in the Middle East or somewhere, but here there will always be people who will show up, and those people will have to work because they show up. Now, so that means you're not going to have a negligible effect. It's the old thought. Well, I'm one person. How much effect can I have? So that's where the debate comes in. It's like, well, now, if you don't believe this, you should make people work, then you shouldn't be there. And so it's true. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I do tend to go out sometimes on a Saturday. I resist it. I don't do it all the time because I'm not sure of the right answer. So sometimes I do it, sometimes I don't. But I'm usually reticent about the decision either way. I don't usually feel bad for not going, and sometimes I feel a little weird when I do. So I don't know. Just call me wishy-washy on that point. But other things for the Sabbath, for this personal guy here who just, like I said, I'm not a preacher, but just in my understanding of how the Bible states things and does things, and being a Christian, I'm gonna go by that. So if you're not, don't, you can just say, well, the guy's wasting his time, ha ha ha. That's your prerogative, whatever. But if you are interested, um, so I do believe that. Now, one of the things Jesus did say is that, it's like you would still feed your animals, right? So you got to still have some work. If you live on a farm, you're not going to like make your animals starve in order to, you know, honor the Sabbath. So that's definitely a point. Um, so yeah, you gotta kind of be smart. You're not gonna do something. You're not gonna be dumb about it. People gotta eat. Animals gotta eat. You might not have to eat, but the animals don't know. They don't believe in fasting. They just want their food. So you gotta feed them. Yeah, force fast your animals. Somebody's ill or something, you still got to take care of them. I mean, so if you're a nurse, you may still have to work, but that's doing good. Or if you're doing God's work, which I think taking care of people is God's work, so that's okay. You know, I don't think there's anything wrong with if you need to take care of the elderly and that's your job, then pray on it, understand it. But it makes sense. I mean, some things have to be done. you know, it's like you can't knock yourself for having to work when it's a useful or it's a life. So, like, if you're a volunteer who's working at a disaster relief, people need you at that point, and you're needed, and you're doing loving God's work. So, that kind of work is fine in my thought. If you're volunteering or something like that, that's all good stuff, and it would be, in my mind, perfectly allowable um, for the Sabbath. So, but again, not a preacher. I don't translate the Bible for a living, but I don't see anywhere. But I don't see anywhere in the Bible where that's not allowed. And God does have some people doing work, like in His tabernacle and stuff in the Bible, on Saturdays, because it's Sabbath. Church and all that is a Sabbath day thing. So that's another thing. I go to church on Sundays, but that's not because I think, that's the day you should go to church. That's just where I go to church. I like the churches better. Now, it's not that they're not 100% right, obviously. They're not doing they don't have their services on Sunday and whatever the reasoning. Most of them do it because at some point the Catholic Church just said, we're doing it churches now Sundays, and all the churches just kind of followed their lead, which is weird. It is weird. But that's fine. Other than that, the doctrine is fine, and it's like there's no problem with going to church any other day of the week. There's not like a rule that says, thou shalt only go to church on Sabbath. No, I mean, God's not gonna. You want to praise and worship Him. He's not gonna and learn His word. Don't matter what day of the week you go. So, I think that's my thought. Now, I do agree with the Seventh Day Adventists. I've been to Seventh Day Adventist churches. They always feel weird. They're not the ones around me anyway, just don't feel very welcoming. They don't feel like the kind of church I'd want to go to. They have their own set of excessive rules, like, hey, we believe this, and this. And it's like, well, that's not a thing. So it's kind of coming up with who lines themselves best with the Bible. And the Bible should always be your number one source. Don't matter what your church says. If it's not backed 100% in the Bible, or you don't believe their interpretation of verses, like if you go to a Pentecostal church, they're going to say, like tongues is a big deal. It's like one of the most important gifts of the Spirit. The Bible doesn't say that. It never really calls out tongues as being any more important than anything else. And therefore, if you don't speak tongues, you're probably fine. It's just one of the many gifts of the Spirit, and not everybody gets every gift. Everybody gets a gift, or maybe, but it's not always tongues. And to not get tongues is not a problem, so don't be too concerned about never speaking in tongues if you've been to a Pentecostal church. That's my thought. Again, to each his own belief there. I mean, like I said, even within the Christian ranks, there are things that I don't believe some of these churches are quite right, but I also don't think they're like preaching blasphemy or anything like that. They're just emphasizing or interpreting verses slightly differently, and they're choosing to focus on that. And I don't know if that's great or not, but I don't think they're luring people wrong. It's not like people are being chased from heaven because of it or anything like that. So, not a big deal. So it says me. And who am I, you say? Well, that's the thing. I'm just a guy Just a guy with his own set of beliefs, and everybody's got him, right? But anyway, so some of the other things, I can get into why I think like creationism is stupid, but I'll do that on another day. I've done that. I've done that a couple of times. I've had that conversation while streaming. Um, it's it. Okay, being stupid is kind of inflammatory, but I just think that if you really just look, I mean, I just don't understand how people could be so locked on how creationism is supposed to work because it doesn't. I refuse. It doesn't make any sense. Stop it, people. If you really look at the details, what has to happen, what kind of things have to occur for creationism to be a real thing, to actually, for everything to evolve from single cell organisms and all that nonsense. It's just so astronomical. It's just ridiculous. And I don't understand how people can be um, mindset on that. I'm just saying, that's my one kind of pet peeve that people somehow manage to give too much credit to that nonsense. But hey, you're raised with it. You feel like, well, I've been raised with that, and see, unless you're calling me and all those people who taught me, calling them idiots. I'm not calling anyone idiots, but they're just not looking at it, man. They're really just not stopping to think about it themselves. You know, they're not looking at it and going, huh, you're right, this doesn't make any sense, because it doesn't. But again, don't get me wrong. I'm not, just my opinion. And who am I, right? Who am I? Just a guy. Oh, I always love. There was that guy. In fact, a guy I like a lot. So don't get me wrong. He's a guy. He does this game theory thing, or at least he used to. He's a teacher, I think, in Canada now, teaching like game design. I forgot what his name was. He used to do a show that was basically based on all the probabilities of games and stuff, board games. I can't remember his name, but I was following him on Twitter for a while, what is now X, whatever that nonsense name change that Elon Musk put on. Um, and I was following him on there, and I actually got him to respond to a couple of questions. But he's very, very much an atheist, okay? He has no belief whatsoever in God or anything like that. And he was making a statement about, you know, the whole theory behind God and putting faith in Him and all this stuff. And he was a little inflammatory. I mean, not outright, but I mean, you could tell he had an aggression in the way he was talking. Like it was like people were silly. And I actually responded to him, and we ended up having several back and forths. Not heated, but he has this definite thought that's all survival of the fittest. And I go, well, who decides who's fittest? Natural luck? just just luck. Just the weakest are called from the crowd. And I'm going, do you realize how silly that is? Because man is not stronger than apes. Okay, physically, we couldn't keep up. If we were living out in the wilderness uh, with no weapons other than just what we can makeshift, but you're not given anything. You're just out in the woods, and you have to go make and come up with some way. But a clan of apes and a clan of humans, the apes are going to win, and they're not even as smart, but they're bigger, stronger, faster, and if they want something, they're going to win. Okay. Now it takes the aggression of humans a lot of times to prove that man can be jerks and and try to uh, kick, defeat. So that in the long run, who knows? Maybe they win, but survival of the fittest is kind of a silly thing because, like, what's better? People have been born with extra arms and legs and extra fingers and whatever in time, but those people never evolve. We never get those people as the standard, right? People who or people, even animals that are born with defects, which are always called defects when they occur, like somebody born with 6 fingers or an extra eye or an extra head or an extra whatever, they're always called defects. Why are they called defects, you ask? Well, good question. Why are they called defects? Because they're not the norm, right? And if a person born without arms and legs, they'll get mad at you if you tell them that they're handicapped, right? Because, or that you tell them that it's a defect. Because they're like, well, it's not a defect, it's what it is. It is what it is, what it is. But that same person goes and have kids. What do they have? Kids with normal amounts of fingers and toes, and they have all the normal things, right? Most of the time, I guess there are some things that get inherited if certain types of defects, but ultimately, it's not inherited. Most extra appendages and stuff don't get inherited by people. And you're like, well, if that's better, why wouldn't 6 fingers be more better? And what decides 5 fingers was the perfect amount? So you got to figure when we evolved, we didn't just start with 5 fingers, right? I mean, if evolution was a thing, a lot of animals just have three paws or 3 toes. So how come we grew to have 5 fingers? And okay, I get that the thumb might be a thing, but all right, so the thumb evolves because we're one of few animals with an opposable thumb, right? Here's a question. At what point was it decided that nature saw, gave us an opposable thumb and goes, we kept that. Okay, right? So survival of the fittest. You're saying that everybody who did not have an opposable thumb died out. They just died. For some reason, somewhere along the line, humans got an opposable thumb and everybody else just died and stopped having kids with non-opposable thumbs. Just stopped having them. Just because somebody... there was no logic, because you got to realize it's survival of the fittest has nothing to do with wisdom. Nobody's making a decision. Survival of the fittest is random luck. If they weren't killed, I got these opposable thumbs, I'm going to kill the rest of you because I'm so much better. That's not how it works, right? So, I mean, there was nobody out there just wiping out all the non-opposable thumb folks. And at some point, we just, got them and they just stuck. Because defects or extra appendages or oddball things don't stick. It's just not how it works. The next one born is going to have regular whatever it was before. So over millions of years, at some point it had to have stuck. Something had to have said, yeah, we're going to keep this. But how? It's not how it works. There's no thought in survival of the fittest. There is no logic to it. Logic implies intelligence. Somebody's thinking it through, going, oh yeah, we got to keep this. This is good. But then you're giving it wisdom. It's no Mother Nature, no survival of the fittest. Mother Nature would have to be a god or somebody who has the power to actually say. So there is no valid reasoning behind any of our functions and features. If things are truly random, as is implied by survival of the fittest, because you would have had to just randomly, out of the blue, get some new function or feature. Some evolution would have to occur, right? You're taller, you're thinner, you have less hair, because the thought is, if we evolved from apes, we had a lot more hair, right? We were hairy like apes, right? I mean, that's how that would have to occur, because apes are very hairy. So unless somewhere along the line apes were not hairy and they spurred off in a different direction and whatnot, but again, you're trying to say that all these random things, and you notice that most animals, land animals especially, fish are weird, they got all kinds of variety, but land animals have 2 eyes, almost all of them. I don't even know how many other animals, I mean, have 2 eyes. Bugs don't, but they're different. They got different different functionality. But how come we all have two eyes? At some point, was three tried out, and it was just like, no. Or one was, but every kind of animal, no matter how different we are, they all have eyes. All have two eyes. It's like, well, why is that? Why is it that so many people, all these animals got two eyes? One eye had to be tried at some point. I mean, did it just randomly randomization? We got two eyes during evolution, and then every other creature that ever formed was just randomly only got two eyes. Where some got four legs, some got two legs, some got um, thick, fat, hairy legs, and they just all these changes that would had to occur for all animals to at some point form up. But the one thing, they always had two eyes and two ears. How does that work? How does random creation make that decision? There's no decision to be made. That's why I keep saying I don't even want to use the word decision, because decision means intelligence. Something just happened, and then survival of the fittest, as all other forms died out. And it's like, that would mean there would have been so many. Because if it takes millions of years, right? So it's like, it takes tens of thousands, if not millions of years for evolution to make significant changes. Because, humans have been around in our current form for a couple thousand years. Maybe we're taller. Maybe we're living a little longer. I don't know. But ultimately, we're pretty much the same. We've had 5 fingers, 5 toes for all that time. But you go back far enough, 10,000, 20,000 years, and they start saying we had different features, or at least they're trying to say we did. Maybe our heads were bigger and we or smaller, or beadier eyes, or whatever. That's pretty small. That's a pretty small level of evolution, by the way. That's not actually saying that we had different stuff. Not saying that we were walking around on all fours. It just says that we had the same stuff, just, maybe in a different position. Maybe it was more ape positioned. I don't know. It was thought we were maybe hairier, because they never saw hair. They haven't found like a body that's like covered in massive amounts of hair like an ape. They're just finding these weird deformed skulls or whatever and saying, hey, proof that we had a Neanderthal before us. Well, is it proof of a Neanderthal? What is a Neanderthal anyway? What is the proof trying to say? Telling you, man, there's a lot of stuff you have to consider for evolution to work. And the fact that we can see over the thousands of years that we even exist now, beings that look pretty much exactly like we do now. We can find skulls and bodies and whatever going back several thousand years. Maybe not all the way back, but for a couple thousand years, we're seeing what basically amounts to just humans as we are now. Slight changes, maybe slightly bigger, slightly taller, slightly whatever, but ultimately the same. 2 eyes, 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 ears, all the good stuff, all the required stuff to function. And I don't know. I'm just telling you, evolution doesn't work, man. Doesn't work. It's not a real thing. It's maybe in small amounts. Like I said, we might be taller, might be a little bit strong, maybe a little heftier. I think we're heftier because we eat more, but I don't know. I just don't think there's even all that much significant change in humans that can even be guaranteed attributed to evolution. But we know that there's different breeds of animals, and even the Bible says to each, after each species, you can't cross mate. Humans can't cross with apes. So if we actually evolved from them, at what point did it break that we couldn't mate with them? I'm not saying I want to mate with an ape, by the way. I'm just saying that we can't currently. And you know there's people who probably thought they could try it, um, because there are crazy people like that. But um, just saying, I think the whole premise doesn't make any sense. Why would we suddenly not be able to? Dogs, any dog can mate with another dog. I mean, even into the wolves, which are just dogs, right? They're just bigger dogs, maybe a little bit more feral, but they're just dogs. So yeah, they can all mate, and but cats and dogs can't mate. You've never seen a cat dog except on cartoons, um, and weird movies. But yeah, there's not really. It's just not really a practical thing to consider, and I'm telling you, the whole evolutional theory is just bonkers. And people stick by it. Smart, very wise people just can't seem to get past their own logic. They can't stop and see the realistic. I mean, people who study odds, even like this guy I was telling you about, who I can't remember his name. They study odds for a living. They know the function of how things, what the odds of things happening are, and it's so astronomical. Their way, it's a theory that what do they say, like the 100 monkeys or whatever, 1,000 monkeys. You put 1,000 monkeys in a room, and they'll write the shakes. They'll eventually write with a typewriter. They'll eventually write Shakespeare, and it's like, even it might take a million years, assuming the monkeys never die. It might take. They'll just randomly type out the works of Shakespeare. No, they won't. No, they will not. I mean, people even now people don't write the works of Shakespeare, and we know the works. We can go and plagiarize the whole thing, but almost nobody really ever does that. And when they do, it's how many years apart. it's, it's not even that likely when you can do it, when you have the ability, much less on a random luck. So I'm just saying, man, really think it through before you commit to that. And then as soon as you can commit to the reality that how ridiculous evolution really is, you're like, well, then if it's not evolution, how did it happen? Then you have a chance to come around and realize. Now, okay, here's one thing I can kind of understand. I'm not going to say it proves anything. That an atheist can come along and say, well, if evolution is really bonkers, then where is the the creator? Where is he? Why isn't he part of our lives now? And that's oftentimes the argument. If there was a creator, if there was a God, why does he let X, Y, and Z happen? And with most pastors and preachers, whatever, their comeback is, well, we're in a fallen world, and if only good things happen to Christians, then it'd be hard for anybody to ever actually believe in God, right? I mean, you wouldn't be believing; you would just know He exists because He's proven it. I mean, all Christians are just having a great time, and everybody else isn't, and no bad things ever happen to Christians, and that would be, that's no longer an act of faith, right? The evidence is proven. But so then you have to ask yourself, and then they start asking, well, then what kind of a God would let these things happen? Well, that's understandable, and I don't know. I don't know God's thinking. He's got reasons for everything. Um, he could do something, and he doesn't. Maybe it has to do with not being obvious with faith, and he let his son die for us. He let him go on a cross, tortured, beaten, and died for us, right? Now, if your kid had to go through all that for any reason, you're sure as heck not gonna. If somebody wanted to be forgiven for having harmed you or harmed your kid, are you gonna make it easy on them? If you're forgiving in nature at all, what would you do? And I'm not talking about accidentally harmed. I'm talking about intentionally harmed. But maybe they regretted it. Maybe there was um, a second thoughts, and they're like, "Oh no, what did I just do?" And they came to you and they said, "I want to apologize. I'm so sorry for what I did to your kid." And it wasn't, it was horrendous what they did. And if you were a forgiving person, would you make it easy on them? Would you just like, "Okay, what do you want from me? Well, how can I help you with your life's problems? Because I'm okay with it. I'm gonna let it go." No, I think God's, he's gonna let you. He's gonna forgive you because he said he would. But it's not gonna be like you can just have a free ride. You're gonna have to have faith. You're gonna have to believe in his son and that his son did what he did. And if you don't believe all that stuff, then God's like, forget you. I, I, and that's really what it is. He's saying, forget you. If you don't want to have faith, you don't want to believe that my son went through all this junk. Hey, I was there. He went through it. He was there, and I'm not inclined to be there for you. Now you wonder, well, okay, so how come bad things happen to Christians? Well, again, it's about trying to give other people an opportunity to have faith. They will. Those Christians that bad things happen to, they will have a life after death. But that brings me around to another thing. I don't believe, again, this is just me. Well, it's not just me. There are others who believe this, but it's not the common theory. When you die, even as a Christian, you go to the ground. Yep, you go to the ground just like everybody else. There's only a handful of people in the Bible that went straight to heaven. And it says those people were taken up to heaven. And they weren't dead. They didn't die first. Moses, he didn't die first. He was taken. God took him. I think it said he died. There was a couple others that were just taken to heaven. Prophets, just a couple of people. There's not very many. Everybody else, David died. Most all the major characters in the Bible that you know of died. And they're in the ground. But here's the deal. When you die, there's no time. You're not like waiting down there for the time to go to heaven. You're just dead. There's no time. Clock stopped for you. You're done. Done for now. But when the time comes and God does finally say, "Okay, enough's enough. It is done. We're putting this, we're resetting this stuff. I said I'm coming back. Let's do it." When he finally says that, then everybody who's dead and the Christian will rise. The Bible actually implies that everybody's going to get raised back up and everybody's going to be judged. Now, those have faith in, it's like, those have faith in his son and in Jesus when they died, finally just gave their heart to him and said, "You know what? I'm going to give my faith to God." Whether it be right before you die. There are some that probably will do it right before they die. Others that refuse, even to the bitter end. But God will decide who's legit. It's going to come down to your heart. Are you doing it just because you're afraid of death and you just don't want the other options? God's going to know that. If you're doing it because you actually truly want to have faith and you believe and all of a sudden everything just comes clear to you at the last minute because God allowed you to see, then yeah, God's going to take you. It doesn't matter when you do it. If you come to faith 5 minutes before you die, if it's legit and it's truly coming from your heart and you really want it, and it's not just, oh no, I'm gonna do it just in case, I'm about to die anyway, so let's not take any chances. It's not gonna work. It's gonna come down to whether it's truly in your heart to have faith. Now, brings us to the next point. You have faith, and you're gonna go. You're in the ground. You wake up. It's gonna feel like instantaneous, like you died and you woke up. You died. You blinked your eyes, bam, you're awake. Now, I don't know. This is one of those weird questions to me. What's it gonna be like, right? You're gonna wake up at some bizarre location in the middle of nowhere, like maybe at the graveyard, or you're gonna where? How? I see. That's where things kind of get weird to me. It's like, where are you gonna wake up at? that's what I've always thought. It's like, okay, so God puts you back together in your heavenly body, which is gonna be different. You'll feel more spry. You might even be able to discern things clearer. Your brain's going to be able to fully function, and you'll have 100% use. I'm not talking about like us use only 10% of our brains, whatever nonsense that is. I don't know. I don't believe that's true. I think our brains are doing stuff. We're probably using most of our brain. And if you're not using some of it, it's simply because you just don't use your brain. You just don't. I mean, it's like if you don't do artistic stuff, the part of your brain that's artistic isn't going to get used, right? I mean, simply put, if you're not using parts of your brain, it's because you choose not to use parts of your brain. It has nothing to do with how our inability to use it. It could be there's some minor functions, minor things that we don't do. I'll throw this in there. I believe to a point, and you're going to be like, oh boy, now he's really jumping off the edge. I believe to a point that telekinesis exists. I don't know. There's just been things that people do. Okay, so my thought is either there's telekinesis or there is demonic / devil / angelic support for some of these magicians out there. They're doing things, I don't know. They're doing things that just feel like it's not possible. It's against the laws of nature what they are doing, some of them. Flying. They don't fly, but I mean, like they can levitate themselves out in the middle of nowhere with obviously no equipment. People have been next to them while they are floating off the ground, next to them, watching them, seeing it happen. You see people doing things like putting their hand on a stick and balancing their whole body off in the air. Again, people have walked by them, seen them do this stuff. And people say, oh, it's leverage, it's this, that, and the other thing. No, it's not. It's not possible. It's not. So, here's the deal. They either have some form of mental ability to do that, telekinesis, which is anything that's moving something with your mind or holding something with your mind is telekinesis. It doesn't even matter how much. If you're bending a spoon, if you're lifting a rock, if you're... all that stuff, that's telekinesis. It's the ability to will something to move. Which, by the way, is how I believe Superman can fly or lift large things if he was real. He's obviously not real. Nobody's got the power and strength that he has, blah, blah, blah. But I'm just saying, that's how it would work. I mean, in order for it to work in the real world, it would just be, it wouldn't be just that he's strong enough to lift the building. He has to have the mental telekinetic ability to engulf the building into a single point of strength. Basically, it rises because he's willing it to rise, not just because he's that strong. That's how that would work. I'm telling you. That's how. So when you're ever wondering, how does Superman do that? That don't make any sense. There's geometry says no. You're right. Physics would say no because you can't do it. Physics says that a person can't balance themselves on a stick that's out here, right with the tops of their hand. You can't do it. But yeah, you're gonna go out and see videos of people walking by and people actually doing this, and people are like, "What the hell's he doing?" They're watching him do it, literally. Now you see people stand on a stick that's at an angle. That's just balance, right? Because yes, it's on a point, but they've adjusted the center of balance over the point of the stick, so it looks like they're balancing on a stick. But really all they're doing is setting their weight so it's leaning half this way and half that way, and it's coming down to the point of the stick. That's different than what some of the people are doing, where they're, holy moly, this thing is plugged up. Can't get my this is way plugged up. I can't even get, holy moly, that is some significant. I'm gonna have to get a finer one here. There we go. So anyway, I think that some of them are, there has actually been videos actually saying that they are getting demonic help to do some of the stuff they're doing. People say it's all, it's just a trick. Yeah, well, it's possible. I'm saying it's possible that it's a trick, but there are certain things that just like, there's no trick that's going to let you do that. That's why I call out levitation, flying, that kind of thing, because some of it, and I'm not talking about when they lift them up in the middle of a show and they put the hula hoop over them and they're just floating there. And people go, ooh, ah. But do you ever wonder how that happens? If they succeeded, even if, it was 50 years ago and they were just lifting them 6 inches off the ground, and they do the hula hoop all the way around the body, and it's just like they're just floating there, and then they put them down. How'd they do that? People go, I don't know. It's because I don't think they're doing what you think they're doing. It's not like it's just magic. It's just these people are super talented. Something's going on. Has anybody ever just stopped to think that perhaps if it smells like, like they say, what it smells like crap and looks like crap, it's probably crap. Which isn't always true either. And that's what I'm saying. Sometimes I could, but that's my theory. I believe that there's forces in this world, and I want to say I lean towards demonic, because demons are demons. If they existed, that seems like the kind of thing they would do, trying to get influence and fame and affecting these people by way of providing them with this fame and fortune. And as time goes on, these skills get better and better, right? Because everybody's just got one little extra something going with their ability. And you kind of wonder, it's like, did this guy really just figure out something better with that trick? And you're like, So now you go from just small levitations on the stage to people, floating up above buildings and out on, getting mega feet up into the air, and you're like, something's weird. You just got to stop and kind of go, something's not right. It doesn't seem, it doesn't bode for, it's not natural. Sorry, it's just, I don't know. What do I know? I'm just a conspiracy theorist, right? I'm not, but, and it's like, people are just like, they're going to always think there's something up when they don't understand it. True. It's not past human nature to do just that. So I'm not debating that possibility. Maybe I'm just one of those If it doesn't make sense, then it must be demons and devils. But the thing is, okay, let's put it this way: if it was unnatural, if it was they were doing something, they either have powers that we didn't know humans can have, or they're up to something. Something's not fully above board. That's my thought. Again, I am nobody speaking out my butt, which I think is not an unreasonable statement. I do that sometimes, as do a lot of people, I suppose. But just gotta you just gotta be aware that there are things in this world that we don't understand, and it's not always as innocuous as it's tried to be presented to us. So just be aware of that possibility. Huh? Not everything's as harmless as we think it is. We don't know for sure, and maybe there is something about it, and these are just some really intelligent guys out there doing some really amazing things with their intelligence. And it's not, I won't put it past the possibility because I don't know everything, but it just seems, I know magicians never tell their but never expose their tricks, never expose their lies. But I don't know. You gotta wonder sometimes. What the heck is going on? That's the I gotta wonder anyway. I just like I said, I feel like something's up. Something's up, man, and I don't know what it is, but so I'm using this dark red as my shadow. Just to make it look like things are a little bit more divided. Okay, so anyway, that's why I think that there's a lot of things in this world. Brings me back to the whole point was, I think a lot of magic could be telekinesis, which I think is a mind thing. But how does telekinesis explain things like people supposedly? Are you really? They keep saying it's just a study of, you know, people, understanding how people respond to certain misdirects, and that's possibly true. You learn to to do tricks on people based on how you're able to distract their minds and distract their actions, and they think that you're doing something amazing when in fact it's not. They just didn't see you do what you did, right? They fell for the whole, you know, switch or whatever it was that you did to trick them. And I think that's a legitimate possibility. However, I also think that some tricks are just not answerable that way. And have you ever noticed? Have you ever seen a thing full Penn and Teller or whatever, where these magicians come in and they do tricks, and if Penn and Teller can't figure out what you did, um, then you win whatever it is you win. I don't know. I don't even know what you win, but you win something for fooling them. But have you ever noticed that they won't expose the trick? They'll say, "Yeah, we know how you did it. We figured it out. We know that there's this, and," but they won't tell you how it happened exactly. They don't. They don't expose the trick. Now that might be out of courtesy. We figured it out, and they may. Sometimes they don't. They don't always figure them out, which is good. I mean, I guess, but I think there are good magicians out there who can do a lot of cool tricks. Don't get me wrong, and they're perfectly legitimate tricks, but they're tricks. Sometimes I think some of what these people are doing are not tricks. They are magic, which magic doesn't really exist in the world according to most people, right? There's no real magic in the world. An atheist would most certainly believe there's zero magic in the world. But you think about it, for a Christian, how do you think God created the earth? I mean, he spoke into existence things. What do you think that is? That's magic, man. Something from nothing is, it's either magic or there's some ability um, in words that we have not figured out. Most of us. Maybe some magicians have. Maybe that's what they're doing. But I think it's an interesting thought to consider that perhaps there is more to our abilities in this world than there are than we think we know, right? And so yeah, you gotta keep an open mind to the possibilities that this world has things going on that we don't know. And if it ain't demons, angels, devils providing these abilities to people, what is it that's doing it? Sorcery? Magic? Sorcery and magic, this same thing, right? Now, God tells the people, David, or was it David? Or, oh, it was actually Saul, I think. He told him, you're not supposed to be, um, you shouldn't be visiting sorcerers. Sorcerers are bad. Okay. The thought is that they get their power from, they were called sorcerers, but I don't know what that was. I don't know what they meant by sorcerers, right? In my mind, sorcerers are those people that can shoot fireballs out of their hands. That's a sorcerer. Biblically speaking, I don't know if that's what he meant by sorcerers. Um, so yeah, I don't know what exactly are we avoiding there. I don't know. But God did not like sorcerers. So that's why I say a lot of the magic and stuff that's out there is not coming from God. Because God doesn't God is not a fan, but he also seemed to have acknowledged him. Now, again, there were people in the Bible that were, known to be sorcerers. At least one that I can think of. I can't remember his name, but he's in the Bible. Look him up. He was known to be a sorcerer. Now, I think there are, I don't know what the implications of that, what the implications of such abilities are. What were these people doing, But I think there's definitely a lot of interesting things in this world that we just don't really, we either don't see it, we're blind to it, we blind ourselves to it. For whatever reason, like we just refuse to acknowledge that it exists. I don't know. So there's my knolls coming together pretty good, I think. Starting to have a decent look about him. Now, I'm gonna have to do something about my my white, because I feel like my white is not it's not smooth enough. It's too so I'm gonna take. Now, how do you make white smoother? Well, you use gray. And the best gray I have is holy white. I'm telling you, holy white is about as white as it gets. It's about as gray as a... When is it? 11:30. Okay, another time. Now I'm shaking up both my holy whites. I have a holy white from the first version of speed paints and one from the second. The Speed Paint 2.0 actually shakes up better than the Speed Paint 1.0, but I think the Speed Paint 1.0 is actually whiter. One of the cool features they started putting on speed paints is to tell you what the color is. Like Gravelord Gray. What is that? What is Gravelord Gray? Well, if you look at a 2.0 paint, it says it's just gray. It's just gray. Nothing nothing fancy. Or a Grim Black. It's just black. But I have some other colors. Okay, like for example, Holy White. That's grayish white. It's grayish white. It actually says. It's not holy white. It's grayish white. So that's one of the things they did with their Speed Paint 2.0. Like Nuclear Sunrise. Vivid orange. That's what that is. Nuclear Sunrise. Nothing in there. It implies it's some kind of a yellowish color, right? I mean, that's what you would get from Nuclear Sunrise. But it's not perfectly obvious from the name, right? Some of the names really don't say what they are. And I think that's kind of a weird thing. I mean, it's kind of been, an industry standard, right? Colors. Okay, so really all this is me in an attempt to try to blend away some of these whites. I have to go over this a little bit with red still. Because as gray as this is, it's still way lighter than some of my color here. I don't want to give him totally white hair. Probably should be blending it with the red color I actually used. I can't even remember what the red color was I used on him. I really don't. I don't know what the red color was that I used on this character. It's all trying to balance out, trying to get away from streakiness, but also trying to get away from sometimes the paint just gets too much in there and I have to bail on it. Go, okay, enough of that. I didn't even set my timer for my giant knoll. He's not actually a giant knoll. Giant knoll dog. That's what it should be. No, the giant knoll is the knoll. I actually have a knoll over here that looks like a knoll. I don't even think I have this knoll dog on here. Pets, familiars. I don't think he actually counts as any of those. What would he be? Is he just a random knoll, a D&D character? Knoll dog. We'll call him a knoll dog. I don't know. I'll have to look up online what he was actually referred to as. But what color? My Yingo. Oh, it was red brick. That was what I used for him. Interesting. Interesting. Well, what did I just use? Am I using red brick or am I using black red? I think I'm using black red. Where's my... That's red brick. No, I'm using red brick. That is the color I use. That is my underlaying color. Funny. Funny, man. I don't know what I'm doing. Don't even know what my own colors are. I'm going to have my black color here. All this is just to try to smooth out my gray while keeping my dark color intact, So one of the things I did notice, if I have to mention anything about this Ghostbusters, I didn't mention this to my wife. I was gonna talk to her, see what she thought about it. Okay, so ghosts are the premise of the movie, right? I mean, the whole thing is ghosts, and they were talking to one of the ghosts who was saying, I don't know what happens next or blah 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 blah. And what do these ghosts end up, right? What happens to them after they die? And the theory they provided was that your your molecules, your protons or whatever it is, they go back to the universe. That's what they said. So they acknowledge they would acknowledge in they acknowledged in the show that people have souls and that your soul is your ghost, right? And that so like even in the show, this one person's able to separate their soul from their body for a little while, kind of like a ghost. And she was able to be like a ghost, right? And basically be a ghost for 2 minutes. And then her body would wake up and she went back to her normal ghostly self, her normal human self. And but one of the things was that they just returned. So a soul, which is a biblical premise, right? God puts your soul, your spirit, your Holy Spirit into your body upon birth or whatever. He breathes the soul into your body. It's your holy breath or whatever you want to call it. But the movie did not want to touch on that. It did not say anything about it being even a religious thing at all. That these ghosts were just manifestations of humans or creatures outside of their human selves or their living selves that simply have not yet returned to the cosmos. Your cells or whatever simply break up and you disperse out into the universe. That's the whole premise. I'm like, wow, they're really trying hard to make sure they don't talk about biblical things, even though the whole point of a soul is biblical. Right? So they're saying that it is the soul. Ghost is the soul of whatever creature it's being a ghost for. But the movie did not choose to acknowledge that that is actually a biblical premise, which I thought was interesting. I thought it was interesting anyway. I don't get terribly offended. I think sometimes it's funny. I don't get terribly offended when I see like people using very biblical premises and trying to make them seem like there's nothing biblical about them. It just seems like, wow, they're really trying hard. It's just interesting to see how the world will attempt to commandeer biblical truths for their imaginary purposes. I mean, I get it if you don't believe in God, but you can't say you believe in the soul, or you can't say, there's people who say that they don't believe in God, but yet they believe there's a hell. Huh? How does that even work? You believe, you don't believe in God, but you believe in the devil. Huh? There is that. They use you might be hearing me going, huh? No, it's true. Trust me, there are people out there who believe in one, not the other. So, okay, I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning of my original statement where as I was talking about how I thought evolution doesn't work, it's kind of nonsense, and if you really thought about it, you would come to that conclusion too. Everybody would, if they really just opened their mind and gave the premise some real thinking, they would realize that. But that's besides the point. So you come around, and I'm like, okay, if evolution's not going to work, I can understand still people wanting to be an atheist, even if they knew that there had to be a creator to create all this stuff. And here's my only logic in it. And God, understand me in this. I'm going to say right now, I think God tries a little too hard to stay anonymous. To not be visible. I think that's I won't say a weakness. I will say it's an interesting approach. And by trying so hard to be anonymous, by allowing people to misinterpret and see things be affected and possibly having a solution outside of God, it's hard to see that God is still here. And by not being able to see his presence, not seeing him act, even if you're willing to acknowledge that he may have created the universe, many people just go, but he's not here anymore. Some say God is dead. God is no longer with us. And I just think that is a result of God choosing to remain as anonymous as possible and forcing people to make their decision of faith with doubt. It's really what it comes down to. They have to make a decision of faith fully with doubt. You have to be able, you can't, he makes it pretty impossible to be positive of his existence currently with us. Some people say, well, why would I want to worship somebody who's not here anymore? It's not that he's not here reacting and doing things, but he doesn't do them in an obvious fashion. And sometimes it is a miracle, and you can look at it, and if you really, really try, you're going to go, oh yeah, that's definitely a miracle. But more often than not, it's just gray enough that people will try to explain it away, and you might be able to. At least enough so that you can convince yourself that God is in fact not real, that he's not here, that things that are happening are not the work of God, they're just work of random accidents, random luck. That person healed, they just healed. Their body put it back together even though they weren't supposed to. There was no medical way it should have been possible, but somehow they did it. And that's very much God probably performing a miracle, but you can't prove it was God, right? How do you prove it? The body fixed itself. For whatever reason, it fixed itself. And the only evidence of God is that he fixed himself. But that's not, we know the body's capable of some pretty amazing things, so it must have just done it. In spite of what the doctor said, it's not possible. But voila, there it is. So, what do you do, right? I think we have to make some pretty big jumps, and God does it on purpose. He wants us to make our decisions of faith fully on faith. You can't, he doesn't allow us to rely on fact. There can't be enough fact that it's just without any doubtability. There has to be enough counterpoints to make it possible that maybe in your brain he doesn't exist, and therefore you have to be willing to believe 100% on faith. You can't. It's like the difference between knowing and faith. Faith is not knowing, right? You don't have faith in in your hand existing, right? You know it exists. You don't have faith in it existing. It's just you know it exists. If you knew God exists, you would not have to have faith in him, right? And that's simply how God wants it. There's always going to be the possibility of doubt. There has to be the possibility of doubt in order for faith to exist. And if you don't have faith, so in other words, if you knew for a fact that God existed, you'd have to have faith in something else, right? So in order to be saved, you'd have faith in what Jesus can do for you or what he can do. You just you would know that he exists, but now you have to have faith. But if you know he exists, there's no doubt. It's like God knows, or like they say, the devil knows God exists. He has no doubt in his mind at all that the God exists. So the question is, but he has no faith in God. He's not giving his heart to God. He has no desire to serve him, no desire to worship him. He doesn't believe God, for whatever reason, deserves his faith. And so God's going to, take what he can from those that are willing to give it. And you will always have doubt in your mind as to God's existence. And it's the only way God can I don't know, force faith upon you. Is by making you have doubt. You gotta have doubt. Sadly, that is the requirement of faith. There has to be doubt. Doubt first, faith later. Faith comes as of point. So you know what? I know there's no proof that I can't fully argue everything about God's existence. Like I can't be sure that I'm not talking to myself instead of believing that he's talking to me, right? You don't know that. It's hard to make that decision in your mind that God is communicating with you, right? It's too much to accept for a lot of people, and I have trouble with it too. I don't know when I'm just talking to myself. And, is God talking to me, or am I just putting thoughts in my own head? It's hard to know. The answer to that question I cannot give you. There's too many things that happen in this world that are hard to explain. You've got to assume that a Christian might go, yeah, that's a faith thing. You have to have faith for that to be. But do you? I don't know. Some people would say, oh, I know God, I know Jesus, whatever. And short of actually knowing God or Jesus, they've walked into your house and you've had a conversation with them. They don't know either. They don't know God. They don't know Jesus, but they have faith in him strong enough that they know that with that faith, they are saved, and that they're going to continue to have interaction with God. He's going to be there for them. And to what extent? I don't know. They're just going to have faith that it's taken care of. God's got you covered. And you just got to be willing to accept that and go about your life, and then just live it out knowing that God's there for you. And you're going to have struggles. Such is the way of the world. We're all going to have struggles. And sometimes it will be hard. Because that's just what this world's all about. It's hard. Sorry, one and all. But it is what it is. And yeah, I have my doubts too. I'm telling you, I've had my doubts of his being there, his presence in my life. Just because you can't, you ask questions, you ask for things, and sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes the answer is yes, but not now. But you don't know that because he doesn't tell you that. You know, God doesn't communicate his wishes to you, so it's just faith. You have to go 100% on faith. Some people say they can hear God talking to them, but I don't know. They're either that or they're better at discerning those voices in their heads. Everybody has voices in their heads, right? You're either talking to yourself, or God's talking to you, or some other being is in your head talking to you. But how many people can really say those voices in their head are themselves or someone else talking to them? I mean, right now, what is it? Schizophrenics, schizophrenia is multi-personal. Was it multiple personality disorder? It's a thing, right? But is it is it though? That's what we say, but is it possible? Is it possible? I'm not saying it is because again, this is just me asking a question to anybody who wants to respond. Is it possible that they're possessed? Everybody say no because there's no such thing as spirits and all that. But again, even people who say that there's no such thing and they're just saying it to convince themselves, they can't be sure. Short of having direct interaction, you can't be sure. And you can certainly never prove that you're right about it not existing because there's no way you can see all possible scenarios in your own life. Okay, so you can't ever be 100% positive of anything not existing. You just can't. There's no, people say that they don't doubt themselves, but they doubt themselves. Trust me. And faith comes from the opposite. It's 100% knowing that something does exist. But again, you can't prove it. There's clues and tips and hints, but not enough that you can prove it. Just like evolution. People will say that that's fact, but we only have clues, hints, and tips. We don't have facts to prove evolution. Okay, we weren't there when it happened. We certainly haven't been able to find all those millions and billions of life forms that should exist to prove evolution. All those dead bodies, you'd have to keep going back like 1,000 years at a time, or maybe even 100,000 years at a time, just to kind of see evolution in its truest form. And so until we have time travel and somebody's willing to go through time and try to prove that, we'll never know for sure. It's just not possible. But I'll tell you this: if you're going to travel back in time and try to prove evolution, you're going to come back being a faith. You're going to come back as a Christian or somebody else. You come back as a Jew. You're going to go, oh, well, that didn't happen. So all that's bogus. So you're going to come back at least believing in a creator. So says me, I know. Who am I? I'm just a guy painting models and jabbering about stuff. I'd say his tongue needs a little bit of color. What color is that dog tongue? They're usually like a dark red, aren't they? I can maybe add some. Do you think we'll ever have time travel? I don't know. I don't know. I guess it comes down to whether or not time really is, what is it called? Flexible. I mean, you got to figure there's some form of time travel, right? If a person can travel through space and suddenly what they say, like if you travel at light speed and you travel 13 years at light speed away, you come back, everybody's old. To you, it was only 26 years, and for them, it's been 300 years. And you're like, how does that work? How does time move differently in different locations? That's what I'm thinking. Well, is there a way to move far enough away or in a direction that moves time the other direction? So if you weren't 13 years away, would time actually rotate the other direction? So people would be younger. Or how would that work? What if you're already in the future part? What if you were born in space and moved 13 light years in this direction? You came to Earth. You're actually growing closer, not further away the whole time. Does that matter? Does it have an effect on how time moves? I don't know. I don't know. There's a lot of interesting questions on how things exist. There have been theories, of course, that time travel is possible given certain circumstances. Now, we don't know. I don't know. How would you, if you can travel to the future, you should be able to travel to the past. I mean, right? I mean, if you were to go one direction, you should be able to go the other. Because why would it preclude your ability to travel in both directions? It'd be silly to be able to travel to the future. And if you can't travel back, what good is time travel? Time travel has no function if you can travel in only one direction. Maybe good for you to learn some stuff, but now if you're stuck in the past or you're stuck in the future, you're not going to gain anything from the trip. You're just going to have to live in a new territory. It'd be like going to another country. You just have to suffice. And nobody there is going to believe you if you're going to the future. It'd be like, yeah, okay, so you say you're from the 60s, but how do we prove that? It's just common knowledge, right? If you say you're from the future, you can say anything you want, but if you're far enough from the future, nobody can verify your claims. You say such and such person wins the World Series, or this such and such country is now in control of the world, or blah, 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 blah. You can't prove it, because nobody will live long enough to prove you a liar. If you come from far enough in the future. And then you can prove things, come back with some proof of things that that's the future. Like, all right, I'm showing up in the 80s. I can force them to know because I can take some facts from the 90s with me. And then you won't be able to prove it until the 90s, but, You have to take things even that are going to happen just days from the time you arrived, because you want to be able to prove it right then. And is it really all that important to prove it? Or maybe you're not supposed to prove anything, right? I mean, you're doing something that now some people say it's like it's a paradox or whatever. You can't like talk to previous versions of yourself. I've always liked the premise that if there's time travel, you go back in time. You're not going back to your past. You're going back to a past. And as soon as you arrive, you're on another line. So you would never have, you might meet a version of yourself, but the future version of that self met you. They already know you were there. You're not like suddenly altering the future by showing up because that person saw you. Because you go back, meet yourself, and tell yourself how to become a millionaire. You're not going to go, aha, I've got my, then when you return, you've got a mansion and you've done all these other things. As soon as you make a change, if that was the case, your memories would all alter. Everything would change. If you did something to save a parent from dying, your brain would suddenly flood and short circuit probably from the altered changes that resulted in your parent or relative dying and not dying. Good, bad, whatever. Your whole life would be different. Maybe you even don't make the trip. Maybe you vanish immediately because you never made this time trip. So I'm thinking what actually happens is you go into another time shift. So when you meet yourself, the future version of that person on that line met you. They know they saw themselves as a kid, and that happened. It existed. I met a time traveler. It was myself. I blah, 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 blah. But that's on a different timeline. You would not remember having visited yourself because you never visited yourself on your timeline. When you return, you're going to re-intersect with your original timeline and continue forward. You will now have a memory of meeting yourself as a kid, but only because you went there and met your kid self. You're going to remember meeting your kid self, not going to remember being the kid who met yourself. Confused yet? That's how it would be, man. That's the only way time travel could ever function. And if it's possible that we're going to come up with time travel, it's already been come up with, right? Because time is going to fluctuate for that purpose. So I say, be prepared for some nonsense if you're thinking time travel is going to exist. You're either going to meet somebody in the future. Nobody in your past will have ever met a time traveler unless they've already met, and all effects that come from that have already occurred. In other words, or are going to occur. Like maybe they knew one fact from the year 2025 and they're going to go and do something with that fact. And it is what it is, what it is, what it is, right? So I say if you meet a time traveler in the future, it's because they came to your timeline. But you are not altering their timeline at all. Even if it's your future self. You're going to meet your future self and you're going to go, such is the plan, Stan. I didn't put my accelerator on there. I'm gonna let him dry. Glued on there is 12:05, probably good enough. So here's where we're at with the Knoll dog. Don't want to fall off because he's still gluing. He's obviously not stuck. So we'll take my no, not falling off. No falling off, please. We'll let that glue tonight. Okay. Let's take a pic. Pictures. Pictures, pictures, please. Is he done? Don't know. I'll have to decide when I see him next. Tomorrow. Tomorrow I will look at him and go, probably going to go a little longer. We'll do that for now. We're going to go ahead and click my quick pick. Did I do the right one? Oh, okay. And you say, why are you using that? I'm going, because I didn't know it was on. And then we'll go over my edit. We will crop it down to normal spacing. And I'm trying to think, I may have to darken that up. I think it's a bit much on the white. I may have over darked him. Maybe I'll gray it up. Just to lighten it up, be a little bit more shady, but for now that's what we'll do it. There's too much white on my knoll. Alright, so I came up about 10. So it's now 12:07, so we'll say 2 hours. And I mostly worked only on the knoll. Yeah. I also need to put some paint color on him. I think I used leather brown for his base, to be honest. And then I used, what else? I used the leather brown. I used my black, grim black. And I used some holy white. And I used some regular white. Ink. Alright. Let's add some of these color palette. Let's see, best kind of barcodes. I got 1, 2, 3. Oops. What did I miss? There it is. Okay. So I got my black, my white ink, leather brown. What else did I put on there? Oh, I have my top layer red, which I can't find at the moment. Oh, I used orange. Where's my orange? Yeah, I used my Martian orange as my highlight on my red areas. Well, that's it for now, troops. I'm going to call it for tonight. It was quite the discussion. I hope it didn't infuriate anybody too much. Until next time, you take it easy. Goodbye.